Hello everyone, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks very much for joining me. Today I'm doing the assembly tutorial for the recipe card box. And included in my tutorial today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a lid to go on this box. This project has been designed by Nicole Silhouette here on YouTube, and I shall link her YouTube channel in the description box below. The recipe card box is available right now as a digital cutting file in Nicole's Etsy store, and soon it will be available as a die set in Beki Store, and I shall link both of those in the description box below. As I said before, I am including a tutorial today for a lid designed by myself to go on this recipe card box. I have all my pieces cut out, and today I'm using the digital cutting file. So let's get started and I'll go through those pieces with you now. Here are all the pieces that you need for the recipe card box. To begin with, we have these pieces here, and these make up the box itself. This is the base, and you can see where I've put the double-sided tape on the glue tabs. These two pieces here, there's a left and a right piece, and they make up the sides, and you can see where I've put the tape on the glue tabs. Then we have the front and the back of the recipe card box. The front is the smaller piece and the back is the larger piece. Next up, I'm going to talk about the decorative panels for the base of the box of the recipe card box. And I've cut them from this floral paper that I have in my stash. And I've also cut them from the base cardstock, which is marble Kaisercraft. And I've cut them out because I want to put them on the inside. I want to make the box as sturdy as I can. Then we have the recipe cards and the decorative layers, which I have here. My recipe cards are going to look like this. This is a finished one. So we've got a base, a decorative panel, another layer, and then the recipe card. And there's nothing on the back of mine. I've left the backs of mine blank, but you could put decorative layers on those as well. So there are 12 of the recipe cards. You can make more if you like. Then I've got the 12 decorative panels. And I really like this pretty paper. It's actually called Cascade, and it's from Bella. It's been around for a long time, so I'm not sure if it's still available, so I won't link it. These are the other layers that go over the top of your decorative paper. And then we have the recipe cards. Now in the die set, there will be a stamp, I believe, that will stamp that for you. And you can get the digital cutting file that will be in there as well. Then we have these 12 pieces here, and these hold the recipe cards. And they go together like so. And as I said before, there are 12 of those. And the recipe cards sit in like so. And of course we have the decorative panels that go on the front and the back of this piece, as I'm showing here. Again, you can put a decorative panel on the back of your recipe card if you want. I'm not doing that with mine today. And lastly, I've got these little feet here. These are the same as what Nicole used on her recipe card box. And I got mine from AliExpress, and I will link those for you in the description box below. And there are 4 of those. Next up, I'm going to talk to you about what you need to make the lid for this box if you want to make one. So I've made up a couple of templates here, which are going to assist us in making this lid. You're going to need a piece of card or acetate that is 7 3/4 of an inch by 9 3/8 of an inch, as I'm indicating here. And another piece of cardstock or acetate that measures 7 1/4 of an inch by 6 inches. So using those templates, I have my pieces here cut in cardstock, which will make it easier to see in the tutorial. But I also have my pieces ready to go here in acetate, or the acetate substitute that I have used. So we'll get started now, and we'll put this recipe card box together. And I have the box pieces here. And I'm using the largest rectangle with the glue tabs, and we're going to attach the left and right sides to the short sides of that rectangle. You can see there are 2 short and 2 long sides. We're going to attach these left and right pieces to the short sides, like so. Taking care to line it up as always and be as precise as you can. This recipe card box is not that difficult to put together, and most of this tutorial you'll see me mainly putting on decorative layers, but the actual lid tutorial that I'll do a little bit later on does take a little bit of time because we're making that lid by hand. So we've got our left and right sides attached to the base, and this is how it's looking. and it's time to put the front and the back on. So the short side is the front and the larger side, or the higher side, is at the back there. So I'm putting the front on, just attaching it to that glue tab on the rectangle, and then I'll put the back on, taking care to line it up and be as precise as I can. And this is what our shape will look like, and it will close up like so. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now and take the backings off these glue tabs. I'm going to join the sides to the front. And then join the sides to the back. And that's our recipe card box. Pretty much constructed. Super easy. Now it's just a matter of putting in the decorative layers. So as I said before, I've got the decorative layers here in the pretty paper to go on the outside, and I've also cut them again in the plain paper to go on the inside. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I think it's a smart idea because it gives this recipe card box some additional strength. So I'm just going ahead and putting all those in place on the inside of the box. You don't have to have the plain colour on the inside if you don't want. You could put pretty pattern paper in there too, but you're probably not really going to see it very much, so that's why I stuck to the plain colour. And I'm sticking my panels on the outside now, as you can see. And I thought I'd leave this in the tutorial because otherwise it wouldn't be a very long tutorial. And I'm just putting that floral piece on the bottom. And that's our recipe box made pretty well without the recipe cards. So I'm going to go ahead now and stick the feet in place, and I'm going to just use hot glue. You could use a wooden bead on the bottom of these boxes in each of the four corners. That would look nice as feet as well. Or you could use flat back pearls. Large flat back pearls would look nice too as feet. There's a few options there, but I do like these little feet that you can get on AliExpress. So that's the base of my recipe card box done, and it's time now to move on to making the little holders that the recipe cards go into. And they're very simple to put together. They look like this. You can see where I've put the the double-sided tape on the glue tabs. I'm just going to remove the backings. That gets folded down and the other side just gets attached to it like so. Then you take the backings off the tab at the end and tuck it in, and that's how it looks. Very easy to construct. So I'm going to go ahead now and do that to the others. There are 12. You could make more. You could make as many as you like to fit into the recipe card holder. There is a limit though. If you overfill it, it won't look nice. But for my tutorial here, I've got 12. You could probably go to 15 if you wanted, or possibly 20. So you can just see here, I'm just constructing these and putting them to the side. Just taking my time also as I'm constructing them, making sure that they're all lining up nicely and going together well. Just getting that last one put together, and they go in there like so. So I'm going to put the decorative panels on the front and backs of these now. And as I like to do, I like to stick my decorative panels on with glue. It gives you much more wriggle room to line things up nicely. And the glue that I'm using is the art glitter glue. So I'm going to speed the footage up here and get the rest of these done. You can fast forward this if you like, but I thought I would just leave it in in case anybody wanted to just watch it. These little recipe card boxes would make great gifts for a lot of different occasions. Mine I'm doing in sort of like just a flowery, girly type look to it, but you could do it in a Christmas style. You could do one for a kitchen tea or a bridal shower. That would be really nice too, with some good recipes for a first-time homeowner. There's lots of options. You can see I had one piece left over there, so I had to go back through them all and find the one that had only one on one side. There it is. There's the culprit. So I'll put that in place. Now these all go in here like so, and it might seem that they feel a bit loose. And this is where I say you could probably go to 15. I still left mine as at 12 because it's going to depend on what grammage of paper that you're using. So if you're using a thicker cardstock, you'd probably only get 12 in there. Mine's about 220 GSM, but you could go a little bit thicker if you wanted to. But they still sit in there nicely. So I've got my recipe cards here and they'll go in place like so, or my finished one that I have here. And I'm going to go ahead here now and put all the decorative layers into place on the recipe cards. Just gluing them down one by one. And sticking it down, taking care to line it up. There should be a small border around the edge. I'll speed up the footage here. I wish I could craft this quickly. And get all those in place. Like I said before, you could do the decorative paper on the back as well if you wanted, but for mine I haven't. I've just left that blank on the back. But you could very easily make these double-sided so that you had a recipe on each side of the card. That's an idea too. I have to apologise for the creaking and the banging that you might be able to hear in the background. My craft room is outside, so there's a lot of wind and things like that. It's making my craft room creak. So apologies if you can hear that. So I've got all those decorative layers in place, and now it's to move on to the next part where I'm going to glue the recipe cards onto their backing layer. And I'm deciding here whether I wanted to pop it up with foam, but then I thought no, that would make it difficult to write on, so I decided against that. And they go in place onto that other layering piece, and there should be a border around. So I'm going to go ahead and do all those. When I do my voiceovers in my craft room, you do get to hear all the additional outside noise. But it is nice having my craft room separate to my house, because I can come in here and make a big mess and then close the door and walk away. So one day, probably over Christmas, I might do a tutorial of my craft room, because I have had it actually fully renovated in the last 12 months. It was a little bit of a COVID project. And when we weren't in lockdown, I had workers here doing plastering and making custom cabinetry for me. I waited a long time to have a custom craft room exactly how I want it, so I'm very lucky to have been able to have that. So I've got all those done now, and it's time to attach these to the bigger pieces, which I'll go ahead and do that. And they just go in place like so, and I'm just eyeballing it here. You could measure it if you wanted to, but I'll just do it by eye. And I'll pop that one in there. And when you're putting these cards in, you just need to be mindful of the glue tabs that are inside and manoeuvre the card down around those glue tabs. And that holds the card in place nicely. So you can see I'm putting a reasonable amount of glue near the edges so that there isn't any parts that poke up. and sort of less in the middle. Just getting all these glued down. And this is probably the most time-consuming part of this recipe card box, actually, is doing all these recipe cards. But it's not too painful. And you could really go to town and decorate these up a lot if you wanted to, but I generally like to keep things fairly clean and simple. So I'm just getting that last one glued down, and now I'm going to put them into those little holders into the recipe card box. And I'm just taking care to just slide them in around those glue tabs, and that seems to hold them in place nicely into those little holders, as I said before. And the recipe card actually go behind where the glue tabs are, both the bottom glue tab and the side glue tab. Just getting them in place. And they sit very nicely in this box. Like so. And you can flick through them, and you've still got room to put others in there if you'd like. Again, it will depend on how thick a cardstock you use as to how many you'll be able to fit in. You don't want it too tight a fit in there, because then it'll be hard to flick through them. And now it needs a lid, so we'll get on to that tutorial now. So I've got my templates here, and I've got one that I've already made from acetate. And I'll talk more about that at the end, about the acetate. And I've got my templates here, and I've got my cardstock, and I'm bringing in my scoring board. And I'm going to try and explain this as best I can for you. So I don't have this footage sped up at all. This is in real time. And the first template I'm going to use is the smaller template, the 7 1/4 by 6 inches. We're going to use that first. And we're going to put it onto the scoreboard so that the 7 1/4 piece is the longest side against the corner there. And I'm going to go along to the 3 1/8 inch mark on my scoreboard and put a score line. And I've put the measurement there on the screen for you as well. Then I'm going to fold along the score line, and that's that piece. And I'm doing this in cardstock for the tutorial so that it's easier for you to see. Now move on to the next piece, the larger piece. This is the 7 3/4 piece by 9 3/8 of an inch. And I'm putting the template there so that you can see it. Those black areas are areas that will be cut away, but we'll work on the score lines first. So I've got it in orientation like this in the scoreboard, where the 7 3/4 of an inch by 9 3/8 of an inch as it's appearing here, so it looks the same as the template. And we're going to put the first score line at the 1/4 of an inch mark on the scoreboard. So just running the embossing tool down the 1/4 of an inch, just reinforcing it. And then we'll move on to the next score line. We'll just miss this bit here. I'll come back to that. We're going to work on this score line here. And that's at the 3 3/8 of an inch mark. Which I'm showing you here, it's all this line all the way down. 3 3/8. I'm just going along to the 3 3/8 mark and scoring down. We'll come back to that other area soon. Then we'll move on to this score line here, which is at 7 1/8 of an inch. And we'll put that score line in. And you can see that leaves us with a 1/4 inch tab on the end. So now we're showing the 1/4 inch score line, 3 3/8 of an inch and 7 1/2. And that's represented on our cardstock as so. Next we'll move on to this score line here. We're going to rotate the cardstock 90 degrees to the right. and we're going to come along to the 6-inch mark and put a score line. Oops, hate it when it falls out of that little groove. So just reinforcing that. And then we'll move on to the next score line. And then I realised it would be easier if I put my template in the same orientation so that you can see. So we've done our 6-inch mark all the way down, and then we're going to move on to the 9 1/8 of an inch spot here and put another score line. And you can see that that puts a glue tab on the end. So I'm just reinforcing that. Then I'm going to rotate the cardstock back around to the other orientation, 90 degrees there to the left. Do the same thing with the template. And we're going to work on this glue tab here. We're going to make this glue tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mark with my embossing tool at the 3 1/8 of an inch mark, which is 1/4 of an inch away from the 3 3/8 of an inch mark. Then I'm going to take my ruler and place it along this score line here. And I'm going to put a mark with my embossing tool at the 3 1/8 inch mark, the same as what's at the top. But it's along the score line. Then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a line that will join those two marks up. And now we have a cutting line. I'm finished with my scoreboard now, so I'm going to put that to the side. And we're now going to do some cutting. We're going to cut out the area that I'm about to indicate. I'm going to cut out this area here. So I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to rotate the cardstock 90 degrees to the left. I'm going to cut up from the bottom up to that score line. I only did it to the pencil line here, but in actual fact you need to go right up to the score line, but I'll show you that shortly. Then I'm going to cut along the pencil line and remove that corner section away. And our template's looking like so. Then I'm going to fold along all of these score lines and burnish them, because what we're doing here is glue tabs so that we can put this together. This is where I realise I need to cut right up to that score line. So I just do that quickly. It's a little 1/4 inch cut, and then fold along that score line, and then I'm going to burnish them all. So I kept this part of the tutorial in real time so that you could keep up, because I don't want anyone getting confused. So I'm just giving all these score lines a burnish. And we're ready to keep on putting our cuts through to make our glue tabs. And the cuts that I'll be making now, once I lay this down onto the template, you will see it's to make the corners for the glue tabs so that things fit together nicely, as I'm indicating here. These are the little bits now that we're going to be cutting out. And this is just making it easier for the putting together of these pieces. It makes things go together neatly. So I'm just going to cut this one on an angle here, and the other side. That's that glue tab made. As you can see, when I put it down on the template, it's matching up nicely. Then I'm going to move to this glue tab and I'm going to notch in the corners like so. This next corner here, you're going to need to go all the way across, as I'm indicating with my finger there, because you're creating that notched in corner for the glue tab you just worked on and the next one. So that's that glue tab done, and then you'll do the same thing on the opposite corner, just straight across there. It's another glue tab done, and here we're just going to notch into the score line and the same on the opposite side, notch into the score line. And then we just have one more to do on the end. Just notch that on an angle like so. And that's all our glue tabs done. So I'm going to place that onto the template so that you can see that it looks exactly the same. And we're ready to move on. So I'm going to bring in the other piece that we just folded and scored, or scored and folded I should say. And I'm going to start putting some double-sided tape now onto the glue tabs so that we can construct this lid. The footage is getting sped back up again whilst I get these glue tabs taped. So I hope that wasn't too difficult to follow. I'm just getting this last one done. So this larger piece is where all the work gets done, the scoring, the cutting, and the glue tabs, and the other piece just gets scored and folded. And the pieces go together like so to make our lid. So we'll put that together now. So I'm just making sure those pieces will go together nicely. Just going to remove the backings off the larger piece and join that smaller piece to it, or the shorter piece I should say, to it. Turn it over, fold that tab in, take the backings off, and then fold the other tab onto it. It's the easiest way, keeping it all nice and flat. Then it's time to close down the lid, taking the backings off the adhesive on the glue tabs, and this will get folded down and inside and attached to the inside of the box. So I'm just getting these glue tabs tucked in and adhered to the inside walls of this lid, taking care to be as precise as I can, making sure it's all lined up nicely. Go inside and press the glue tabs down against my work surface. And then I'm going to bring in the recipe card box, and you can see it just goes in over the top and it sits inside. So it does take a little bit of finagling to get it in and around the recipe cards, but it fits in nicely. And there we have our lid on our recipe box. And this would be good enough like this. You could decorate it up and that would look really nice. But I, of course, wanted a see-through lid on mine. So I've got my pieces here already pre-cut, scored, and the double-sided tape on there. And this is exactly the same as what we just did. Here's the template to show you. Both pieces, exactly the same. So we'll put this together in exactly the same way as we put the one made in cardstock. And I just wanted to talk to you just briefly about what I've used here. I have not used acetate. What I've gone for something that's a little bit more durable. And what I'm using is binding covers. The ones I'm using are A4 in size, and they come in various packages of, say, 25, 50, 100, depending on what your need for them is. And the best way that I can describe what these binding covers are is, say you had a corporate job and you're in a meeting and they were handing out a proposal of what they were going to do. It would be in a little booklet and it would have that plastic comb binding down the side, and these binding covers would be the front cover. So that's the best way I can explain it. You can use acetate if that's all you have. It's just that these are a little bit more thicker and I prefer to use them for this sort of project. So if you haven't tried binding covers before, I can recommend you trying them. They're easy to get. You can get them from office supply places and they're not terribly expensive. So I'm just getting this last edge sealed up and closing off the top of this lid. And making sure it's nice in shape, and there we have our lid. So I'm going to put it in place over the top of the recipe cards and it slips down inside the box. You do have to finagle it a little bit the first time you put it in, but it sits in there really nicely. And I think that really does look nice that you can see the recipe cards and they're protected by a clear lid. So I have my completed recipe box here, and you can see that I've gone ahead and tied a ribbon around with a bow, and I think that this looks quite sweet. You could just attach a tag at the top and give it away like it is. This could be decorated in many different styles, as I've mentioned before: birthday, Christmas, kitchen tea, bridal shower, baby shower even, or a housewarming present. All of those ideas would be more than suitable. So that's my tutorial finished for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching and that you feel inspired to make one of these. Don't forget to check the description box down below for the links that I have previously mentioned. And if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would really love that too. Thanks very much for watching today. Have a great day, and until next time, it's bye for now.